The very last episode of She-Who, The Power of the Doctor. Ding dong, the witch is dead. Well, this is the day we've all been waiting for, and it finally arrived. The end of She-Who. And I have to say that I am extremely relieved, especially after watching that final episode. It became painfully obvious that Jodie Whittaker was never up to the task of playing the Doctor. When we saw Sylvester McCoy and Colin Baker, Paul McGann, Peter Davison, and the man that they have replacing the first Doctor. When we saw this group of previous Doctors and we saw them interacting with their companions, the ones whose companions were there, Ace and Tegan, it became painfully obvious just how inadequate Jodie Whittaker's Doctor really was. Because we had these moments between Ace and Sylvester McCoy, as well as Tegan and Peter Davison. And in those moments, you actually felt like the Doctor was there. It was a profound thing because, for instance, Tegan, when she was confiding in the Doctor about how she was feeling, he knew exactly what was on her mind at that point in time, and it was Adric. The conversation between Ace and Sylvester McCoy was very profound about how children are supposed to grow up and leave the nest. We never got anything like that from Jodie Whittaker. When she did talk to her companions, it was usually painful, especially the way she interacted with Graham about his cancer and his fear that it was coming back, or how she dealt with Ryan's father. It was awful. Absolutely awful. And I've come to the conclusion that Jodie Whittaker herself was a big part of the problem. Even if she did have better lines, because the other Doctors in the episode, Chris Chibnall wrote those lines. Why didn't he write those lines for Jodie Whittaker?
What stood out for me was when Sylvester McCoy was talking to Ace. It became an enjoyable piece of television. But the thing that was happening that allowed the Sylvester McCoy persona to talk to Ace was there was this bizarre, stupid, like holographic computer program that allowed the Doctor to
appear.
Yeah, I mean, we'll just leave it at that because it was the writing in this episode was stupid.
Oh yeah, the story was stupid. It's not even worth talking about the story because it was that dumb.
What happened that it was a real quick yank. Because when Sylvester McCoy was talking to Ace and you were having that moment, then that image of Sylvester McCoy kind of shook and then turned back into Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. And then she started talking about something. And you could just tell the acting, the tone of voice. It was very clear. It was like somebody back in the old record player days of yanking the needle off the record. You could tell that scene was over because Jodie Whittaker was back.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you. Chris Chibnall is a horrible writer. I think you have to blame him a lot for this train wreck. But Jodie Whittaker did him no favors.
No.
She's just, maybe she could have played a companion because a companion doesn't have to have a full range of different things that they have to do in that role. But the Doctor in modern era needs to do that. And Jodie Whittaker was a one-note piano.
Yeah.
And even then, it still felt at times like all she was doing was channeling a bad David Tennant impression.
And it's definitely not that Jodie Whittaker was a woman either, because then you had Dr. Jo, who was clearly a woman, and she could outact Jodie Whittaker in just a few seconds on the screen. It was just, I wish they had chosen her to be the first female Doctor, or whatever they were patting themselves on the back for doing.
She would have carried a bit more gravitas to what they were trying to do. Because I'm a casual fan of Doctor Who. I've watched the classic episodes. I've watched the modern iteration with Eccleston on. So I'm familiar with the mythos, but I'm not deep into it like a lot of people on the internet are.
Yeah.
So I don't have any tie to, well, it has to be a male. I don't have any tie to the franchise other than a casual viewer. So I was fine with trying a female Doctor. But the mixture of Chris Chibnall's horrible writing and Jodie Whittaker's horrible acting, it made a perfect storm. I hate this era of Doctor Who. I was not crazy under Moffat. I was not crazy with the Capaldi stories. I know a lot of people liked him as an actor, but the stories to me weren't all that good. Matt Smith, there's some Matt Smith episodes I can go back and watch, but I wasn't crazy about the stories. To me, the series started going downhill after Russell Davies left the first time. I'm not saying I enjoyed every single story of Russell Davies, but I enjoyed more than I didn't. With Stephen Moffat, there still was stuff that I enjoyed, but I disliked more than I liked under Stephen Moffat.
Well, the ratings backed up your assertion there.
And Chris Chibnall, I cannot think of a single episode that I liked of his. You and I, on Halloween, we have made a tradition of watching 3 pieces of Doctor Who as Halloween stories. We watch the Tom Baker Horror at Fangrock. We watch the David Tennant, written by Moffat, Blink. And then we watch the Matt Smith Doctor, Hyde. I think that was written by Neil Cross. Mm-hmm. So there's at least a few episodes in the Moffat era I can watch. I will not go back and watch any of Chris Chibnall's. There's nothing here to watch again.
No.
This finale, it demonstrated the problem with the Chris Chibnall era. The plot was ridiculous. The Master forced a regeneration on the Doctor and forced her to regenerate into something that looked like him.
It was him.
I mean, did he transfer his soul or something?
Yes, that was him.
And then he was running around.
It made no sense.
He was running around going, well, I'm going to ruin the reputation of the Doctor. It's like, dude, you look like yourself in your act. Like, I didn't even understand that story at all, like what he was trying to do there. I'm going to take over the Doctor and be the Doctor. But you look exactly the same. You're acting exact. Like, if he was struggling with, some of these other personality traits are coming through, I mean, that still would be stupid, but at least it would make some sense. Well, I didn't understand the story at all.
That would have made a lot more sense. That actually would have been interesting, maybe, if he did combine himself with the Doctor and all of a sudden his personality started changing. That would be very disconcerting, I think, for the Master. That could have been very entertaining. Kind of like when Voldemort tried to get into Harry Potter's brain, but probably shouldn't go down that path too far because then you're just ripping off J.K. Rowling. I think the thing that I find most hilarious about this episode was the whole Rasputin thing. I think Chibnall used Rasputin and that whole Russia thing just so he could have that Russian doll Cyberman.
Which was stupid.
Yes.
I cannot describe to the viewer how stupid this episode was. The story elements. We sat there and I don't know if this was better or worse than a Star Trek Discovery episode. I realized that at least we got through it. But the story elements were as stupid as anything Kurtzman has ever done on Star Trek Discovery.
It was better than Star Trek Discovery, mostly because of the previous Doctors who guest starred.
That's a good point. If you edited out those pieces, the companions and the classic Doctors, then I still make the argument, I don't know if this is any better than a Star Trek Discovery episode, but you're right.
Yeah.
The 2 pieces, the Ace and Sylvester McCoy, that was the highlight of the episode. That was really well done. If you don't watch the episode, go on YouTube. I think you can find it. That was a nice piece of dialogue going on between those two. It was really well done.
Yep.
And the Tegan part, that one was okay, but the McCoy one, I think, was the one that really, not only was it that it hit home for me what a show this could be, but that's when Jodie Whittaker came in and took over that projection from McCoy and then train wrecked. The scene came to a complete halt when she took back over and started talking about what had to be done or whatever. I just tuned out at that point. Like, oh God, she's back. And I just, never mind.
Yep. Yeah. And like at the very beginning of the episode, we immediately lose Dan. Dan decides he's not going to be doing this anymore, so bye-bye, Dan. I mean, he does come back at the end, but they managed to find a way to just kind of shove him away so that it's basically the Doctor and Yaz show. Yaz ran the TARDIS far more than the Doctor did. I mean, Jodie Whittaker's doctor. I mean, it was just, it was absurd. It was absolutely absurd, a lot of what happened in this episode.
It was incoherent.
Yeah.
It was a bunch of crap. Daleks, shove them in there. Cybermen, shove them in there. The Masters, shove them in there. Then they were like doubling down on the timeless children.
Yeah.
And they had this imagery of this girl being chained down on this planet. I mean, this was really horrible. This was nothing but a hodgepodge of crap, which is all Chris Chibnall, I'm convinced, is capable of doing. This was garbage.
And don't forget the Master doing disco music, dressed as Rasputin.
It was horrible.
In 1916 Imperial Russia.
Because the previous low point was when Capaldi had those sonic sunglasses and that guitar, and I had a shared embarrassment when that was going on. I think he was standing
on top of the tank. Yeah.
That was the worst modern era Doctor Who scene that I can remember. This was worse than that. It was embarrassing.
Yeah, and then at the end when Yaz and the Doctor go for ice cream as she's about to regenerate. I mean, it was truly bizarre.
She's eating ice cream, the Doctor, and her hands glowing, and they're up there just taking their time licking the ice cream like no big deal.
And you know, it's funny because at the very beginning of the episode, when I saw Tegan and Ace together, and I said, how do they even know each other? Would they have some sort of support group for prior companions to the Doctor? And then at the end of the episode, guess what? They have a support group now for the companions. And I'm just like, oh my god, that's exactly what I thought this was. I'm glad Chibnall's tenure is over, because as much as he complained when he was young about the writing on Doctor Who, it's been proven that he can't do any better.
No, he does worse. I'm not a fan of Colin Baker's run, but I would rather watch Colin Baker, an episode with him in it, than any of this Chibnall Whittaker Doctor Who. It is unwatchable. I cannot go back. I hate watching that Sea Devil episode or special they had before this one. I'm glad we were busy moving because I didn't want to talk about that. That was
terrible.
Garbage. It was embarrassing.
Yeah, it's just a shame because there were a couple characters that I actually liked from this era. And like I said, I liked Dan. I know a lot of people didn't like Dan. I liked Dan. And I liked Graham too.
I like Ryan as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and it's a shame because Yaz's grandma, that one episode from her wedding that Yaz didn't know about, I liked that character far more than I ever liked Yaz.
She was interesting. It's like, can we kick Yaz out of the TARDIS and have Grandma go?
Oh, that would have been fantastic.
That would be a far more interesting companion than Yaz.
Yeah, yeah. There was never any chemistry between Jodie Whittaker and whatever her name is, Yaz's actress. There was none. There was no chemistry there. And yeah, they made us believe that they were in some sort of same-sex relationship. And then at the end, instead of kissing or hugging or anything like that, they're eating ice cream sitting on top of the TARDIS.
Well, that's the thing, and I mentioned this when this was happening. Now, again, I'm a casual viewer, so I'm only going to point out what I've observed, but feel free to correct me. In the modern era, when Eccleston turned into Tennant, Rose was allowed to stay around. When Matt Smith turned into Capaldi, Clara was able to stick around. But Jodie Whittaker's Doctor purposely said, yes, I want to do this next step alone and basically regenerate alone. And I just thought that was really odd. They were supposed to have this romantic relationship, and the Doctor said, but I want to do this alone, get away from me, even though Rose and Clara were allowed to be around when the regenerations happened. That just seemed odd to me. But again, I'm a casual viewer.
Yeah. So it's over. We saw David Tennant at the end. He regenerated into a new outfit and everything.
Which I don't know how that works. But
oh my god.
I guess he didn't want to appear in that crap because it would be embarrassing. So his clothing just materialized with the regeneration. It's like, okie dokie.
Well, yeah, I gotta
He's like, I don't want to look stupid.
I gotta give credit to that guy who plays the Master, though. He was running around in all of those outfits all together. He didn't show any embarrassment at all doing that.
Even though he looks stupid.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, could you be wearing any more clothes? Yeah. But you know what? As I said, kudos to him. he pulled it off. He did seem like a crazy person, right, wearing all those clothes that had hijacked somebody else's life.
Yeah, but is a crazy person really the master? Ever since the John Saxon, I think that was his pseudonym, with Tennant, ever since then, they doubled down with Missy. The master's being played as this crazy person.
Yeah.
I personally like the John Pertwee era. That's my favorite Doctor.
Yep.
And that master wasn't a fool, wasn't crazy. He was a calculating counter to the Doctor.
What was it, Roger Delgado?
I think that was his name.
Yeah.
And I really liked him. He wasn't crazy. Like, when did the master turn into some crazy person? I think it was John Saxon under David Tennant. And ever since then, they've just been repeating that. I mean, I guess they're going to try to say because he screwed around getting extra regenerations on his own, that like some damage happened to his brain or something. I mean, I don't know. I could not reconcile this guy playing this character in the Jodie Whittaker era as the master, because he just came across to me like a fool.
It was very over the top. It was very over the top. And I'll admit, I didn't really care for the Missy character either, because again, it was too over the top for me. And there was so much in that era that I didn't care for anyway. I won't even get into it.
If Missy would have been a standalone, like not tied to the master, she was an interesting character. The lady who played her,
Michelle Gomez.
She did a really good job playing her.
Yeah.
I just didn't buy that as the master.
No. As far as I'm concerned, we haven't seen the master in a very, very long time. In fact, like even the guy who replaced Roger Delgado, I don't remember his name, but he always seemed to be a pale imitation of what Delgado's master had been. It's really a shame that they have not been able to find someone who could adequately portray a regenerated master. At least that's just my opinion on that.
The Tennant master, again, I'm hoping his name was Saxon.
It was Saxon.
It's been a while since I've seen this.
Yep.
But I thought there was potential there until they played him off. Because we mentioned this in this episode with Jodie Whittaker, this last episode we just watched. There was this scene with this TARDIS, and the plaque on the front said, ha, 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 ha. And I said at the time, I said, does Chris Chibnall think the Master is the Joker from the DC Batman universe? Because that goes back to the Tennant and Saxon Doctor, because there were moments where it's like, what, are you writing this like the Joker from Batman? That's what you think the Master is?
Yep.
Russell T. Davies is going to have a gigantic task to try to bring this franchise back from the ledge.
Yes.
And I hate to say this because I'm sure there's lots of people that are going to dislike what I say, but he's just going to have to ignore the Whittaker era. I know you got the David Tennant interim here, and maybe you can work through that to try to undo a lot of this Timeless Children crap, but when he starts his run in a proper series, he's just got to, I know they're not going to actually go out of their way to like decanonize this. Just don't talk about any of the stuff from the Chibnall era. Just ignore it like it never happened.
Yep.
That's the only way you're going to recover from this. And even then, I hope Davies has some real good writing tricks up his sleeve, because Doctor Who's in real big trouble and has been, despite what people are saying. Chibnall and Whittaker did not kill Doctor Who. Stephen Moffat, if you watch the Moffat era, every single year when he took over, the ratings kept going down, down, and down.
Yep.
And yeah, there were moments in the Moffat era that were okay, but Moffat's the one that started driving the plane into the ground. It's just Chibnall finally was there to take it, let it hit the ground, then Chibnall picked it up and body slammed it back in the ground again.
Yeah.
But this has been going on for 2 showrunners.
Yeah.
And Davies, who was the one who resurrected the thing from the get-go, he's going to have to resurrect it again. And man, I hope he's up to it, because that's a lot of work ahead of him.
Well, only time will tell. And it looks like we're going to be waiting for a while.
Yeah, what is it? Like, there's going to be the 60th anniversary with Tennant and introducing the new Doctor. They're going to have like a 3 episodes sprinkled all of next year. And I don't think the proper next series starts till 2024.
Ugh, is
and
that
again,
right? Jeez.
Like, I don't even know if I'm even going to have an interest at that point, because what is it? Like a year and a half to 2 years from now? Like, what are you doing? I hope that's wrong. Maybe I heard wrong, but what are you doing? You need to get some momentum back Although maybe he's waiting on purpose to try to get the bad taste out of your mouth, because he really does want to do what he did in 2005 and basically resurrect it from, I don't want to say the dead, because there was lots going on with novels and stuff with Doctor Who in the 90s. But, maybe that's what he wants to do, is he just wants to bring it back from the dead. So he figures 2 years of being asleep, basically. Maybe that's what he's hoping to do. Just get people enough distance from this crap that just happened.
Yeah.
I don't know. There are people online that say they like this, Aaron. I don't understand, but I'm a casual viewer. Maybe I don't understand the British culture and how they would embrace Chibnall and Whittaker Who. I don't know.
No, the numbers, the viewing numbers say that they didn't. They just, these are the lowest numbers the show has ever seen. That's really saying something.
All I can say is good luck to Russell T Davies. I'm in his corner. I want this to work. Good luck with the new actor they hired. I hope he's up to the challenge, because he's going to have to bring in a very strong performance acting-wise, with some quality writing to bring this franchise back from the dead. And maybe they're up to it. I mean, I have the best hope that they're going to be able to do this.
I hope so. I really hope so, because I really enjoyed the Eccleston era. I really enjoyed the Tennant era. No, they weren't perfect, but I enjoyed them quite a bit. I didn't care for what Stephen Moffat did. I hated what Chibnall did. And I really hope, like you said, I hope Davies can work the magic he worked before and resurrect this thing from the dead, because right now the show is dead. So fortunately, yep, that's the end of the Chibnall-Whittaker era. Thank goodness. And we just have to wait now and see what happens. Thanks for listening.
Take care.